Okay. Hello to everyone. We continue on with our Dharma studies. We're talking about the qualifications of a Chan master, and in particular going over the treatise by the Chan master Yang Yun Ji Shan. Sorry if I spell his or pronounce his name wrong. Is there somebody there that knows how to properly pronounce that name? Yang Yun Ji Shan. Nobody, even though we haven't even interpreters here. Okay. Okay. Last week we were talking about the potential of students and how a master assesses the students. When you encounter somebody that's, let's say, a well-known advisor or master, they will observe you before you've observed them in all likelihood and are aware of very minutiae of information from you to determine how you practice. Some of it is intuitive and some of it is just simply observational, but they're curious about you. They want to know what your level is, what your potential is, and they're always happy to find people with great potential. It isn't necessarily the people who step forward and pronounce some kind of intellectual discussion, but those that their demeanor represent that they have a great potential, their interests, sometimes even their eyes, that they, how they look and their emotion is something that can be of interest to somebody who wants to guide those particular people. When they find that, they're very, very happy and they will be attentive, and then they'll also be tough when they need to be. I think I talked about that last week where Master Sheng was particularly tough to me about it, but that's okay. That's something that comes with the territory in terms of you being able to practice in a way with somebody that is worthy of practicing, and that master knows that you are worthy of presenting and spending time on them. If the master doesn't probe you, then you will not know how far you've gone, or he won't really tell you that, but in the probing, you and the master will know your level by the responses that are given by the master. Sometimes the master doesn't really give you a response, it just listens to what you say. If he corrects you, fine. Sometimes he just might not say anything. And what would you say if a master doesn't say anything to your response? What would you think? Would you think, oh, maybe I should have said something else? Or I'm not correct? Or you could say, he didn't criticize what I said. None of those are a good state of mind to have. And you go, what? Yeah, you can't win in either way of doing that, whether one is self-deprecating and that's still self, and the other one where you think you're so proud in terms of how you answered, and the master doesn't say anything, also isn't the right state of mind to have. One should have no state of mind. One should stay in the present moment and then just simply continue awareness, which is what the master is doing. He's just continuing his awareness, and he knows and is aware of what is going through your mind and whether you have confusion or your mind is very settled. But it's not easy to understand that, because you at that time may not have that capacity to understand that, as we talked about the the Buddha twirling the flower to Kasyapa, later to become Maha Kasyapa. And other people are looking and going like, what is that all about? Because they're still on the outside. They're still in the samsara, where Kasyapa, his mind at that point has merged with the masters or the Buddha's mind here. And there is not a duality there. There's not even a one. There's just this contentment of a smile. It's not bad. This is what the master wants to impart to you, but you can't mimic that. You can't try to play like, oh yeah, I get it. You know, you and I, you know, we're like this, okay, or like this. You know, it isn't in that way. Any kind of a use of some kind of a secret contrivance signal or whatever is not going to be that. It doesn't work that way. But you don't have to worry. The master's job is to take care of you, to push you along. Then you will know. One day, mind will know it is not the self that is present. And no, then you understand that, bless you, Vadim, that you will be able to, it's very difficult to say the words so that I don't say something, speaking in the samsaric verbiage about the esoteric. There is this kind of a knowing, but it's mind knowing mind. There's not a self there, and that's what's important, because as one sees this, then one understands that it is in this way. It's different. I was at a lecture given by Guo Hui, the president abbot of Dharma Drum, Mountain Buddhist Association, I think international, call it. And yesterday, and he was talking about an experience he had where he had gone to an event that was a post-graduation party that he wasn't really interested in. And so he started doing recitation. And while he was reciting the Buddha's name, then he decided, oh, it's time to leave. And he continued to recite the Buddha's name, Nama Amitopa, Nama Amitopa. He got on the bus, Nama Amitopa, Nama Amitopa, Nama Amitopa, until the bus disappeared, everything disappeared, and the self disappeared. And so it was something that in his description, I could feel a great sincerity of his experience. And it was that he had, for that moment, had dropped off the idea of a life or a being or an ego or a personality. This was important because a lot of times people will say, well, my surroundings disappeared and then I was looking around. This is different than what he was describing. When everything drops, it's kind of like all of a sudden you're watching a play and the scenery drops, all of the actors disappear, and it's all gone. And there's no one that's looking at that. It is complete, just simply there. It's resolved in that moment. The next moment could be that it all rolls down again, or the scenery comes back, the actors come back. But there was that moment that you saw, I shouldn't say you, mind saw right through it, saw that it was an illusion, because that experience, and I hesitate to call it anything like a sensation, visualization, or anything like that, because those belong to the senses. This is beyond the senses. Thus, it's why it's inconceivable that there isn't anything in the samsaric world that would explain that experience that Guo Hui experienced in that moment. And it is what the masters are always hoping for, that their disciples, Guo Hui's the Dharma heir, will experience, and looking for those that have this kind of a capability, the stable morality and the bodhicitta and the right view. This right view is one of two right views. One of them is the right view of principle, of understanding this and using wisdom, and the right view that comes from the Gnostic or experienced viewpoint. And I can't call it really a viewpoint. Even right view is not a viewpoint. It is just what we call this understanding that everything is created by the mind. It's not separate. We can say that, but when it's experienced, then it's something different. But all of the masters are always pointing towards that. They're always pointing towards that point. And then I go back to from the very, very beginning when I was talking about that, and when they said, if you act as a Chan master but cannot cause sentient beings to awaken to their Buddha nature, it's called stealing the name of a Chan master. If you occupy a true position but cannot develop or expand human potential on behalf of the Buddhists and patriarchs, it's called usurping the position. To enable sentient beings to awaken to their Buddha nature, you must take great pains with your mind. You cannot make them awaken to their Buddha nature unless you figured out how the mind worked and trimmed away the false consciousness and brought all machinations on their conditioned minds to an end. It's worth repeating that, because this is what is to be presented by the master to the students, is to look into mind, to see how mind works. It is what the Buddha taught from the very, very beginning. He taught how it worked, and then he had to kind of bring it down a level because it was in some ways difficult for people to understand the 12 nidanas and the dependent origination, all of those that have had literally books and treatises and sutras expounding them. So it's not something that's easy for people to really get, but they can understand suffering and the cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, and a path. So that gives them hope. It gives them a way to do that. But we should not withhold the true gem of the Buddha's teachings or presentations. That's important as well. So we cultivate the students, but we don't put blinders on them. And they say, well, what about that? No, don't look at that. Don't pay attention to that. You're not ready for that. Well, when are you going to be ready? I've had students where I've talked to, and I explain that to them, and right away they clearly see it. Maybe because that very moment it was from the past life practices and it's an awakening, or that their sincerity in terms of practicing. And so we should not withhold that from those who have that kind of capability. And the ones that are listening to me, you have that ability to do that. That's why it's not a wasted breath. I don't fear teaching you this. I hesitate to even call it teaching. I don't fear that. What I fear is me taking my final breath and knowing that I could have had a one more, 500 more, whatever it is, whether it's 1 or 500 or 5,000 people that will listen and will be able to penetrate. That's worth it. That's worth it. That's one more than would have been someone else just teaching the basics all the time would have had. So I dare that. I dare to try to present to you, and you are the proof that this works. You have the sincerity to practice and to listen and to study, and this is why I do this. This is why I take the time week after week to present this to you, because you listen. That's very, very important. When we're looking for the students, the first thing we want to do is to find the students that listen. They listen with their heart. Listening with your heart is keeping the mind from straying, trying to feel the lecture, not just listen to it with your ears, but to feel the heart of how it's being presented. Because it's in the heart that it will strike you. The words will make you a master among samsaric practitioners, but the heart is the Buddha. That's where you have to put your attention on. We continue on. And I'll just read just a little bit more of what he was saying about that. Sometimes practitioners with a very high potential to be vessels of the Dharma come, and the master receives them with lion's teeth and claws, and with awesome ferocity of an elephant king, the master puts out the golden traps and hurls such practitioners into the thicket of thorns to see whether they can penetrate through the barrier. Control rest with the master. And again, I think I talked about this last week, but it's just that you should not be afraid of being corrected. You should be afraid of having somebody who's not interested in correcting you. If everything the master says, you're right, you're right, you're right, then how can you possibly go further? But if there's a slight, subtle error in your presentation, in your question, in your understanding, when the master corrects you, you should rejoice, because you're that much closer to getting it right. If you have somebody that wants to tell you all the time that you have done this and you're doing this and you're very good and whatever, that wasn't Master Sheng. And that's not me. I will tell people and praise that they practice well, and tell people that these people are worthy practitioners, only for the sake of them understanding that these people are diamonds in the rough. But it's something that we have to invest in losing. Every time you're corrected by a master, you're closer. So the master corrects the students regardless of whatever level they are, because they want to get them looking, keep looking and looking at mind, keep looking towards that, and developing this foundations, as I've mentioned many times, like Huineng's platform for you to properly practice. When you've developed the right view and the understanding of the mind, then you have less obstructions, and your mind is freer to analyze what's being said at the higher levels. But the higher levels isn't necessarily an indication that you're getting somewhere. If you cling to the higher levels as some kind of an intellectual exercise, they only are various windows that are being presented to you so that you can look through. And then one day, it will just absorb you. What then? You don't have to worry about, did I arrive? Because there will be no you there. Give me 1 second. I'm just kind of going through this. So he continues to extol the importance of using a huatou. And in that he says, these days, people's intellectual cleverness is extremely deep-rooted, and their crazy confusion is extremely complicated. The only alternative is to use the huatou to hem in all of this cleverness and confusion and lock it up tight, to pierce it to the depths so that the sentiments dry up and intellect is exhausted. And there is a sudden transformation of being. If the Chan masters today were to think that Chan means only using classical direct maneuvers that were like sparks struck from a stone and flashes of lightning, then even some of those practitioners might get something from it. In most cases, the practitioner's realization would belong to the category of reflections of light. So he's talking about, using other ways to practice. It isn't necessarily that the huatou is the absolute go-to practice, but I understand why he's saying it, because what he's saying here is that in the huatou practice, let's say, what is emptiness? You cannot answer it. It's an unanswerable question. It means nothing. Or who is dragging this corpse around? What was my original face before I was born? You really cannot satisfactorily answer it. It is something that is that comes after the huatou. That's what's important, is that the question arises. The question is going to arise a second time. The emphasis is not on looking at the question or trying to answer the question, but placing the mind before the question arises and continually bringing it back to that point to where the question arises. Little by little, as thoughts drop off and the ferocity of the thousands of thoughts that arise in a single second subside, and the thoughts are slow in coming. They're not really slow in coming as much as the mind now has cast off the interest in attaching to thoughts. And in doing so, the mind is now moving without obstruction. Moving without obstruction, it's like the difference between, I'm sure you've probably had an experience like this, where you're watering the lawn and the water's just barely coming out. It's just barely coming out. And you go, what the heck? It's just coming out. But then you follow it back and follow it back, and then you find a kink in the hose. And then all of a sudden the water rushes freely and quickly out of the hose. If you never had thought about that, maybe you thought that the water always flowed that slow, trickled out. That's the way we are with our consciousness. The amount of information in the consciousness is so slow coming out because there's so many obstructions. Every time you want to think of something, something else comes on and wants to cling, and you have to wait, I'm trying to concentrate, but these things keep coming and they slow you down. It's as if you were trying to go through a crowd and trying to to part the crowd, but everybody's saying, you have to think about the bill. You have to think about work. You have to think about your dog. You have to think about this. Did you leave the stove on? Whatever is on that making you crazy, but it slows you down. You go, no, 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 no. And you can't do it. The Huatou just is a block. It's like getting, how many of you would like to have a perfect block to all of those rotary calls that you get all the time, and sometimes I'll get them and I'm doing something and it's very, very important. Somebody says, Policemen's Association, whatever it is, you're just, no, don't you know that I'm trying to do something right now and you're bothering me? And then you get so upset. Of course, all sorts of emotions that come. That's what those thoughts are doing, that they want to slow you down. But when you don't slow down, I mean, when you just keep going forward, like the Huatou, then all of those things, it's like a snow plow, plowing all the way through, breaking up all of the snow and allowing you to go forward smoothly. When that happens is that you observe everything that is happening around you. And it isn't that everything goes slow, although it appears to be going slow. It is that your mind is so unobstructed, it's going incredibly fast. It's able to process thousands of times more information per second than it ever had before. It's only because the self has stepped out of the way, and mind, that's just mind. How could mind not function like that? And so this is what he's trying to do, is trying to get you there before the words arise in mind, what's always been there. This is Ekayana. It's just mind. It's just mind. It's what the masters are trying to get you to. They're going, please, please, just mind. Wake up, wake up. Who is waking up? Not you. Mind. Mind. You don't have to worry if you think that all of a sudden mind comes in and you're like some kind of a balloon, that as soon as mind comes in, you just begin to deflate. And where's Gilbert? He was here, and then all the air went out of him. Now he's just this little folded up vinyl on the floor, like a beach ball with a hole in it. It isn't in that way. It is as if the entire world was a beach ball and conflated. Does that make you feel better? Everything conflates and then blows up again. But you've seen the difference. You know that it's just air. It looks like it has a form, but it's just air. Just like the Diamond Sutra says, an illusion, a phantasm, a dream. This is what this great master wants you to do, is pay attention to before the word. That's where you'll find it. So he's really trying hard because he knows that this Huatou works. And the Huatou does work. So there's other methods to do that, side illumination, but the Huatou is very effective. It may not be for everyone. Some people's minds are not stable enough to use it because it requires a great bit of effort. If they're older, that might also be something of a concern if one is using the hard Huatou to do that rather than a soft Huatou. But it's very, very effective. And I believe it's more effective than go-on use because in the go-on use, we present some kind of a story, and then you have to tell the master whether or not what you saw in this was correct or not. Who's to say that? It's still samsara correct. Unless there's a genuine breakthrough. A breakthrough, I say, is that a realization that this world in and of itself is not real. It's not real nor unreal. It's just mine. Then the go-on practice can kind of build up like merit badges on an Eagle Scout. I passed this one, I passed that one, I passed that one, you know, and you have a badge for it, and then you go on to the next one. But is that really progress or not? And it depends on the well-known advisor to help you. Some would be very, very good. Some of them may not be so much on that. Okay, we continue on. And he continues to talk about different masters. And he said, with the less experienced ones, he said, the lowly ones stand on the tiptoe. They cannot reach high enough. This is what is called making a living method into a dead one. Miao Shi said, those who act as Chan masters without clearly understanding the great Dharma just teach people with what they themselves have realized. They are sure to blind people's eyes. Isn't this what he was talking about? I didn't read the first part of it. Someone who teaches by rigid formulas and makes high ones bend down and low, and so high ones bend down, but they cannot go low enough. It is important that you have a well-known advisor that can teach you how to practice this. Is very important. Now, of course, people can teach you for how far they've gone, and that's fine. But as you begin to practice, we're always looking for someone that has more insight than us. To me, I am not so foolish to stop looking for someone that could perhaps correct me. I would be elated to do that, to find somebody in that way to do that, because this is how we practice. Until then, I will continue to present to people up to my own humble realizations. So, and then he was talking about different types of huatos besides what is Wu. And he said that whether you speak or not, I will give you 30 blows. Okay, Da Hui's, and he was talking about different comments, excuse me, and then that was one of them. This way or otherwise, neither is right, and others, though the huatos like these can be used with both high and low, they are particularly convenient for those metal is bold and acute. So in other words, he was talking about the use of different huatos. If one has a difficulty with the huato, then you want to give them the simplest one so that they can practice with it, you know, all the way down to giving them a broom and sweeping the courtyard. That isn't a bad method. But if those have a greater degree, then you might want to challenge them with something such as what is your original face before you're born, or who's dragging this corpse around. It's very interesting because sometimes people start using a huato that has come to them that they um, they didn't realize it, but all of a sudden they start coming up with something that came out perhaps from a past life practice or whatever, but then all of a sudden they use that Huatou. If it feels natural, use it. There's a reason why it came up. And if it's productive, fine. Don't try to squeeze everything out of it. Just use it as a regular Huatou. And perhaps it might be something that is useful. I think that Huatous still are particular to people, that people should pick one, or the master should pick a Huatou even better for a person that suits their personality or their level. So in this way, I really believe this master is correct in what he's saying. And then he said, for those even more conceited or whose subjective views are even more strongly held, the master's teeth and claws must be even more poisonous and astringent. Sometimes a master has to simulate joy or anger in order to cut away the proud practitioner's root of life. Sometimes a master has exhaustively pursued intricate inquiries in order to eliminate the secrets the practitioner holds within himself. Ling Chi's complete revelation, or revealing only half a body, or revealing the lion's vehicle, or riding the elephant kings, are devices he sets for practitioners. From this, we see how a Chan master operates. It cannot be called simply transmitting something. It's very intricate, because what we want to do is gauge a student's progress at that very moment. Sometimes the students have had some very incredible experiences, and looking at your faces and seeing who's here, I know that some of you have had some very good experiences. But if you drag those experiences with you to the present moment, hoping that those will garner some importance or effect, other than the fact that you might have broken through and you just got a peek, that gives you faith to practice more. But all of those experiences cannot be used as a wedge to get you through. You have to put those all down. And in this moment, what is happening in mind? What is appearing in mind? You have to be certain about that every single moment. What is happening? You're clear about it. So then when you go to sit on the cushion, imagine if the whole day you were clear about what is happening in mind. When you sit on the cushion, what should be happening in mind? Just sitting. You're just sitting there, very calm, very relaxed, and you are following the method. There is nothing else. I shouldn't even say that you are following the method. The mind is contemplating the method in the present moment. Just sitting. Nothing more. Nothing that you can pull back from your memory and go, come on here, help me, guide me through this. We're going through the deep Prajnaparamita, and I need your experiences to do that. All of these experiences are just foundational. It's something that you stand on or you sit on to practice, but it cannot push you forward. It is the sincerity of the practice that you have to hold on whatever method there is. Let go of the self, let go of the self. So as you begin to let go of the self, you become more and more relaxed. You let the method appear naturally in mind. You give the method energy to stay in the mind by constantly holding on to the method, whether it's a Huatou or some other method, or if in silent illumination, you're constantly recertifying what the environment is. if that environment that you're sitting in does not match what is appearing in mind, you're off the method in silent illumination. They say it's a method and no method, but there's a method there. The method is being clear, being aware moment to moment that you're just sitting. Shifu used to say that using it this way or using a huato is like a dog chewing cotton. Just if you can imagine a dog chewing cotton, and going like, I'm not getting any satisfaction. You don't need to get satisfaction out of it. Don't try to get any satisfaction. Don't try to see colors. Even this master said, these are just like sparks off of a flintstone. We don't use it in that way. We just stay with the method. If you can do that, then you're doing well. This is what this master is telling you here. He's talking about being a master, but he's telling you how to practice. He's telling you why. And so you have to pay attention. It's not about him being a master. It's telling him what a master should be presenting, which is right view. I'll read a little bit more about this. This is on the more like experiences part. There are many different kinds of huato, but the important point is this: above, they must cut through the imprisonment of the barrier of wondrous existence. If the imprisonment barrier is there, then the practitioners use their minds. They must plug up the 4 gates and extinguish the 6 passages. Below, they must cut through the inquiry and questioning. The doubt sensation that a practitioner generates must be genuine. And again, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because I'll give you a huato lecture instead of the lecture I want. But essentially, it is something that we have to use the method in the proper way. When we talk about cutting off any senses, it isn't that we cut off the senses per se. This is not the proper way to practice. What we cut off is the mind that desires continuation. This mind that desires continuation is something like, let's say you're sitting there and all of a sudden you hear a loud bang. What was that? So you think, oh, must be a gunshot, or it could be a car backfiring. It has nothing to do with you. It didn't enter the room. It didn't penetrate your body. Leave it alone. Of course, if it's something very close and you need to deal with it, fine. But if it's at a distance, it has nothing to do with you. Leave it alone. This is cutting off the senses. Doesn't mean that the senses are not functioning. They're functioning perfectly to allow you to contemplating the environment. But we do not have to answer every single emergency call. We're not 911, okay? Nor should we be allured by thoughts that come into the mind. These are just tricks of the illusory ego, these habitual patterns that get us to continue to maintain an illusory existence. It doesn't work that way. The more that you do that, the more that you seek that, then the more that you'll lose your way, because you really don't understand what you're doing on the cushion. Before you sit on that cushion, you have to have right view. You have to know what you're doing on that cushion. I have a method, or even better said, mine has a method. Just sit. But no, you want to get something for your time. If you watch TV, you watch TV for your amusement, and no, you got something out of it. and then you may change the channel from a political channel to a sports channel, and be excited about your team winning or whatever. But when you sit to meditate, there's none of that happening. But we're so conditioned to think that this is the way that we do things, that we allow. There is a choice here. We allow the thoughts to come in. It's as if you were a security guard at the Pentagon, or we could say the White House. What good are you if you're a security guard, and you're sitting there, you're letting everyone come through? How did he get in? You let him in. You didn't see him come in. The masters have said the crime is not that the thoughts arise, but that you notice too late that they have arisen. As you begin to practice in the proper way, as I mentioned to you, the mind speeds up. It doesn't matter how many imposters are trying to come through, you can stop them. You just illuminate them. You don't even have to do anything. No, don't even try, don't even try. I've got a jelly donut. No, go. I've got a bill. I've got a problem. I've got something to lure you. Whatever it is, the mind illuminates it, lets it go. Why? Because it knows if it doesn't give it any attention, naturally it will dissipate. Naturally. That's right view. Why? Because that's how mind works. Habitual patterns come up all the time. They come up, and we have to see them as they are in terms of how they come up in mind. And when we see that, then we understand how mind works. It's important before you sit down on the cushion. If you're just simply sitting there and somebody's telling you, bring up the Huatou, or to sit and don't do anything, but they don't tell you how mind works, then you become very good at practicing your legs. But you really want to go further, want to go deeper, and you can, and that's the thing. The reason that you're here, because I'm kind of preaching to the choir, unless you're very new, that you know that it works. You know that these methods bring you to a quieter state, a more settled state, a clear state, to the present moment, not the present moment between the past and the future. We've talked about that many times, and talked about how Nagarjuna indicated there is no such thing. Then what is the present moment? The present moment is this moment, and then this moment, and this moment, and this moment, and neither are past, present, or future. They're mind moments. As I mentioned to you before, what time is it? You look at your watch, what time is it? It's mind time. It's mind time. No. Heck, I mean, even the drunks, they have more sense than us. What time is it? Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. And so they start drinking, because to them, they don't have a time. I'm kind of sorry, I make fun of people who are drinking alcohol, but I just saw that where, outside some bar, it says it's 5 o'clock somewhere, come on in and have a drink, even though it's like 10 a.m. But the thing is that we understand that all you have to do is think about what time is it where you're at. And then just think about some other place. And if you look at things, it may be 9 p.m. or getting close to 10 p.m. where you're at. or it could be getting close to 10 a.m. Okay. On the other side of the world. And that's just on this tiny little like mote of dust that we think we reside in. There's no 5 o'clock, 100 light years away from here. Okay. But when we begin to see things in perspective, then it enables us to release from the bonds of this world and from the ideas of time and space and form. Doesn't mean that I'm advocating, you just stop doing everything. You have a function here. The function is to assist in the awakening of people to see how this world works. And we use our reason to see how it works. We cannot just simply judge things as it is. It's not easy. You can't tell people, oh, you're just a dream or a phantom, whatever you are. It's kind of difficult for people to understand that. And I once told a judge something like that, and happened to be a Roman Catholic, and she was having none of it, although she had started it. But once I started undermining her idea of what reality was, then I was a heathen. But that's okay. But you still, in your mind, you have to explore this. You have to look at it. That's why the Madhyamaka school is so important, because it looks into this. It looks in a way in which there's devices in it that are very, very powerful to undermine our idea of what we think reality is. This is something that it has to go to your heart. You have to explore it, and you have to see it, and it will work. This is what a master presents to you. Let's see, we've got a few more here. So then the next part is how, once he's shown a practitioner what a Huato is, then he has to show how to investigate it. Very interesting. Because when we investigate a Huato, or we investigate a method, when we're practicing, it is not in a cogitation way. Cogitation means thinking. We're not thinking about it. We're not like Sherlock Holmes. Okay. And using this kind of a deduction, there's an investigation from mind itself. We cannot use samsaric reasoning to do that. There is this, you can't, I hesitate to call anything like transporting or transformation or a bridge or a gateway or whatever, because those words are useless. But it is setting up for the mind's own realization, not your realization. If you say, oh, I got it, then you got nothing. Well, you don't even have nothing because you don't understand nothing. So, but then if you understand nothing, that's not bad. It just depends on how you define nothing. I know some of you are probably thinking, what? And then I would ask you right now, define what is what. You see, it's all very interesting, but that's how mind works. Okay. and then he was talking about in the investigation, he went into this hard Watteau and soft Watteau in terms of it. And I already kind of discussed that. Soft Watteau is just kind of asking it a kind of in a casual way. The hard Watteau is where you demand the answer and you're building up an energy of a doubt sensation. He says, if you use the soft Watteau, all you'll be able to do is suppress your superficial emotions. So he's really advocating that to use a hard Watteau, because that's what essentially blocks thought. And so his way of doing it is building up enough of a mind fortress to be able to see through the thought. By blocking thought is not the way that you think. Blocking thought does not suppress thought. It sees through the thought, and it sees it as something that is arising in mind. Little by little, this kind of an effort to have things, to look at things and seeing that they're arising, reduces their effectiveness in causing vexations in the mind. You will not have discriminations or lures that will come up, desires that will come up. They will come up less intense. And as they become less and less intense on their own nature, there will be a time when, boom, they're not going to be there. And so I will leave it there for today, and we'll continue on tomorrow, or excuse me, next week. And I've got a big paper here with a big X circle, so that must be something really important. So we'll start with that juicy part next week. I will take questions. Okay. Wei Sheng.
It's not me, Esther, who does master.
Your audio's bad.
Oh,
You're sitting on the microphone.
yes. Yeah, I got the bad karma on the sound system. Sorry. Hello, Gilbert. And I said when the master asked, we have to answer. Esther found that this master you're talking about from Ming Dynasty, especially for Chinese listeners, and it's Jie Xian Chen Shi. The book he's talking about is the training of.
Say his name again.
Jie Xian. Jie is actually, that word is what's the word? Help me out. The precepts. Xian simply means Jie is a precept. Xian is the opposite of esoteric. It's the outgoing showing Chen Shi. And that book is a 禅门锻炼书. It's from the title I can sense it's more than the training of. It literally means the training of in the Chen tradition, but it has the meaning of hardship, vigorous, and many ways to make a Chen master. But yes, Esther found it. Actually, every time we do translation for you, the night before I freak out and I ask Esther to every word you said, and she would tell me the Chinese meaning of it. She's so good. So, but anyway, that's just want to answer your question at the beginning. You ask who it is, and for the Huatou method, I personally practiced for some time. I kind of want to dispel the mystery of a thought sensation. The thought sensation is purely because you are single-minded using that, asking that question. Your whole being is merged with the question. That's all there is. It's not like a thought sensation, something special, but you got sucked into it. You just ask that so sincerely, you get into it. And there's one time I was asking Huatou, my body become Huatou. It just, the unified mind means you don't make a distinction. You just simply, you don't make a distinction between your body and the method anymore. It's just one. You just ask questions like that. So it's nothing special. You can't, anybody sincerely asking it will get that. I'm pretty sure a lot of people here already know that. But I do want to talk about that because thought sensation is kind of like, people always ask, what is thought sensation? I like to just to say it's nothing special. It's just simply you ask so sincerely and single-mindedly. Thank you.
The doubt sensation, and thank you very much, Wei Shan, is the energy that is used by the mind to bring attention to the question. Because causes and conditions never fail, then habitual patterns will come up in the mind. If you are constantly asking the Huatou, constantly asking, causes and conditions never fail. So what is going to come up in your mind? Wei Shan already answered, the Huatou. It's going to come up, and it is not that it's blocking other thoughts. It is just simply cause and condition never fail. The Huatou will come up. Nothing else is going to come in because you're constantly doing it. It's like somebody who has, let's say, I'll go back to donuts again because I don't want to talk about other people's vices. They strong interest in donuts, and all day long they'll be thinking of donuts. They see a stop sign and they see a donut there. You know, they look at cars and they see cars rolling on donuts. They see a cloud and it looks like a donut. Why? Because they put that in their mind. Causes and conditions never fail. And it works in this way. So that's why the Huatou works. Thank you, Wei Shan, because you helped me explain this. I mean, you really helped me. For some reason, I got this little insight into how to explain this, that how the Huatou works, because you're constantly bringing it up, and it creates this kind of, one could say, a vacuum or a pressure. The pressure comes from not like a pressure, but a pressure of bringing up the Huatou. So after a while, people will use the Huatou, you know, and, you know, who's reciting the Buddha's name? Brushing their teeth. Who's reciting the Buddha's walking? Who's reciting the Buddha's name? Who's reciting the Buddha's name? Whatever it is, they're engaged in that Huatou, and every part of them is just the Huatou. And then at some point, even regular functions are irrelevant. And one may even lose the interest in eating because all they are is enveloped in the Huatou. So it is in this way. It isn't, this doubt sensation is, it isn't a cogitation. It's not a thinking and say, I have doubt. The doubt is that the world is beginning to disassemble because it requires the cogitating mind to be maintained. If we talk about it from the viewpoint of Yogacara school, it is the collapsing first of the senses to the to the Manos consciousness, to the Manovijnana consciousness. All of these consciousness collapse because they have nothing to operate on. So that's why the Huatou works. That's why this great master was presenting this because it does work. And so these are things that we use. The way Sheng has used this effectively, and that's good. Now he can, tell people about it. He understands it, but if we kind of talk about it, and I'm happy that you said that, because experiences in the Huatou sometimes can come up like a very sudden thing, like I say, where there's like a collapsing of a stage of all of the scenery and the actors and everything, or it can be something very, very incredibly subtle, where that one cannot call up the Huatou anymore, as if one is in space moving so slowly. There's nothing there, but you're not even in space. You're looking for yourself to come out of the hole with the Huatou, because there's nothing yet left there that you could call Gilbert. And these kinds of experiences also can come. So there's all sorts of different ways to do it. It's not just one resolution or an atomic bomb going off. I've seen people have those experiences in retreats, and they're false experiences. It's just that they're so exhausted that they finally just want to do something, and I had one in one of my earlier retreats where somebody, I was sitting after the time, and there was another person across the hall from me, and they started howling like a wolf, and just howling and howling and howling. And Shifu came down, because the person was howling very loud. He was going, "Woo, Shifu, woo, Shifu." And finally, Shifu went down. The master Sheng went down and said, "What's going on with you? It's okay. Relax, relax. You just put too much pressure. Relax, relax, relax." Because it just blew up on that. Did he have an enlightening experience? I'll leave that up to others to say. But I mean, it can create a pressure like that. So thank you very much. It's kind of funny because this kind of almost turned into a Huatou practice one, but I think those who use Huatou will benefit from that. Okay, Harry, what you got? We're working on getting you. There you go.
There we go. Can you hear me? Yeah, I said, thank you, Gilbert. This is definitely a 5 donut talk. So this is more on the silent illumination side. So you can have your mind quite clear, thoughts coming and going, not attaching to them. But what seems to happen is the whole experience is, even though not based on thought, it's still a kind of attachment. There's still subtle remnants of ego, sort of like perfuming, the way the awakening of faith would say. I don't know if you have any ideas of how to look at that or encounter it.
It's something that the mind becomes very clever, and so it's kind of talking to itself, if it can do that, but it does, and says, "Hey, this guy's getting quiet now," and it's going, "We can't have that, so let's kind of sneak up on him and start poking around and seeing what's there." So it pokes not at the gross sensations, because it knows that you're too sophisticated for that. So it goes to the subtle, and it begins to bring up subtle vexations of experience and of different things. And it's praying, please, let a car horn go off, or a dog bark, or whatever, to try to pull this person off. But if you're there and you're very, very quiet, this is where you have to resort to your subtle wisdom. Your subtle wisdom is this antiviral program that Here you apply it just like a salve, you know how they say, you know, just apply lightly. You know, you don't have to put a whole bunch of cream on your hand if you have a rash or whatever. You just apply it lightly, because you're at a point where there's like a tilting point where the mind is very, very leveled out, quiet. And this tilting point is a point between the samadhi and the illumination of mind. You put too much samadhi in and you begin to lose the illumination of the mind because there's too much effort, too much struggle, too much thinking about it. But when it gets to this point where the illumination is there, the samadhi is there, they merge. They merge at that point. But you've got to get through all these little subtle things. You know, it's not you're encountering barbed wire, but these little tiny little points, little sticky things that are there that try to affect you. But that's why it's slight illumination. You have to use at that point the appropriate amount of samatha, of concentration. And then you back off the concentration, because the concentration does require a bit of more mind effort. The samadhi itself, once balanced with illumination, will essentially be like in the parlance of samsara, like seemingly weightless. That's why people feel very weightless, you know, because they no longer have the sensation of the body. They have no longer the sensation of the mind. But then, as you were mentioning, Harry, then there is the subtle one, like, I'm floating. Look, I'm floating. Wait till I tell Gilbert about this. I'm floating all over the room. I can see everybody. You didn't die. You're just imagining that. Don't worry about it. Come back. This is where you use the subtle to come back to there. These are all little tiny points where everything just becomes so quiet. Of course, you can still hear noises, but there's this quietness that belies the environment, that penetrates through the senses, that those kinds of things are observed and heard, but have no impact. It's kind of like that ancient story of, if a tree falls in the forest, will anybody hear it? The Buddha's going to hear it, but it doesn't make a difference. It's just the subtleness there that you have to fight through these last vestiges of the ego. And then if you try to go into this bright light and go, here it comes, you know, I'm going into the bright light, even that is this radiant light of mind. And you think, I arrived. As soon as you say that, you made a mistake. You didn't arrive anywhere. The master Mahabua, he says, this radiant light is the last vestige of the self. It is where the self comes from. Whoa. Think about that. He's saying this is where it comes from. This, and so you cannot be tricked, because if you're tricked at that moment, you're going to stay there and say, I became enlightened or whatever. I went into the radiant light or whatever. But it's beyond that. What's beyond that? We don't know. So in any case, that's what, how that is. Hopefully I helped you a little bit by taking you.
Yeah, that's helpful. So it's kind of it's a very subtle, restless mind, I guess.
Well, it's trying to rustle up something. Did you hear that? No, I didn't hear that. You know, it's trying to make its final assault before it gets into this kind of a weightless and go beyond that. You know, once you start clinging to that sensation, it's not a sensation. Mind is not a sensation. Mind is not a state of mind. Very important. Remember that when you're sitting to meditate, mind is not a state of mind. Okay. Don't be fooled. Okay. So this is your consumer alert. You know,
Thank you.
millions of people have been confused by this and sold the bum bill of goods. Okay. So you got it, Harry.
Thank you.
I'm
Gilbert.
looking forward to seeing you in Virginia.
Yeah, that'll be great.
We'll carry on with this.
Okay.
Okay. Jing. Where are you? There you are.
Hi, Gilbert. Thank you for your lecture. You mentioned two concepts, soft huatou and hard huatou. What did determine this is a hard huatou or this is a soft huatou? Is you mentioned there's different huatou. What is emptiness? What is emptiness? Is soft or hard huatou, or is how you use the huatou to determine that's a soft huatou or hard huatou? Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Sure. Again, I was kind of hesitating because I was going into a huatou instruction, but it's okay because, you know, well-known advisor is going to answer your questions. You know, when somebody asked a master, what is Chan? He said, ask me a question. And so it's this way that we understand our function. A soft huatou is one that you generally use outside of a retreat setting. And you almost like a recitation of the Buddha's name, Nien Fo, you know, where you're going, Nam Amitofu, Nam Amitofu, Nam Amitofu, Nam Amitofu, Nam Amitofu. You know, you're using what is Wu, what is Wu, what is Wu. I guess I use a soft recitation of the Buddha's name as a huatou. But you can use a soft one like that just to keep it going, keep the energy going. I prefer using the Nien Fo rather than a soft huatou. Now, after using a hard huatou, one may have an experience from the hard huatou, where in the hard huatou you apply yourself very diligently, sincerely, single-mindedly as to presenting the question, and putting the mind before the question endlessly. And one can derive certain experiences from that. When one derives an experience from a hard huatou, they can use it as a soft huatou after they've come back from a retreat. And sometimes if the experience is very, very powerful, no, it can be like who, or who is dragging this corpse around, who is reciting the Buddha's name. You don't even need to use the whole one. You simply fall immediately into the huatou without even any continuation of the question. Or sometimes it's, you know, who is reciting the Buddha's name? Who? And boom, you're there again. Because it's the question in that sense has been resolved. So immediately the mind returns to mind. And so you can use it in that way. But even if you haven't had that kind of an experience, you can still have the experience of using it in a soft way. Then that gives you the impetus when you go to a retreat to really kind of press the pedal and go after it. And that's the part that's important, is that you want to be able to use it very, very continuously. One master said that if you use the huatou for 7 days continuously, you will see your true nature. And then he said something that's very, very important. But remember, you know, if you want to cash in on this, and and try to hold me to it. You have to use it continuously for 7 days, continuously. Okay. If you do that, you will see your true nature. And he said, because now I have to qualify that, because being an attorney, I have to make sure that this is right. That if, and I will repeat what he said, and I will make the same claim. If I am wrong about this, may my tongue be cut off in a Viki hell continuously. Now, people who know me know that that is not some kind of a superficial guarantee or warranty. That's why that master said that. That's why I listened to that master. That's why I listened to Master Sheng. If you use the Huato diligently, you will see your true nature in that 7 days. Oh, but if you start looking and going, I like this food, I don't like this food, I can't sleep, whatever, then you voided the warranty. Okay. You can't have my tongue cut off. Okay. So, but that's how you practice. You practice like continuously. The most important thing is maintaining the continuous of it. The soft toe is kind of a lazy way, but it's a reminder to use it. Again, to me, I use Nianfo when rather than a Huato during my everyday life. And I think last week we were talking about it. And if you get upset or angry, you can't have two things in your mind at once or in your consciousness at one time. So if I go Namo Amitofu, then I just convert whoever's the person that I'm directing my anger towards us to the Buddha. Then I can't hate him. Not bad. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Gilbert. Thank you. So a few days ago, I listened to your lecture on living and the first part, and it was so moving. And you said that Master Sheng said that a person with a vow to break is a bodhisattva, and a person without a vow to break is a non-practitioner. And it's just a little difficult for me to hear, given that I haven't taken the vows yet. And when I thought about that, I know I really want to, and I know that I will. I just, right now, and you spoke about feeling like you're not ready, and I just feel like there's a part of me that's afraid, even if like letting go of getting very emotional, for example, is difficult. I just wanted to share that. And is it okay if I take some time?
Nah, it's your time. I'll tell you what Master Sheng told to me once. He said, Gilbert, your mind is very clever. And at first, for like a fraction of a second, I thought he was complimenting me. And then I realized he was, and the people who know Master Sheng and are more experienced, they're smiling, because what it meant was that the self is too thick still. You go. Trust me about that. It's your time. It's only yourself that wants to stop you from doing that. There's no reason why you can't take the Bodhisattva precept. It's not going to be something that you go, I promise till the end of time, I'll never have an ice cream. I promise till the end of time, I'll never pet a dog or see a sunset. You can still do all of those things and more. You just enjoy them a lot more, and you'll understand. Not only that, but it comes with a lifetime guarantee, right? Anybody who's taken the Bodhisattva precepts has a lifetime guarantee. You're going to come back here lifetime after lifetime to awaken sentient being. Not bad. pretty good deal. The only difference is that you'll know what you're here for, where the other lifetime guarantee of samsaric persons, they come back, they don't know why they're here, or they don't know where they're going to go. They, as Master Ling Chi said, they could come back in the belly of a cow or a donkey. You take the Bodhisattva precepts, you have a vow, you know where you're going, you have a compass. It's very, very important. Don't worry about that. Don't worry. As you begin to practice, you see things differently. You begin to divest yourself of the fears of the samsaric world. Now, I'm not going to test myself and say I have no fear, or I don't, challenge me or whatever. It isn't in that way. But it is that, everyone has adversities. Everybody has to pay for their karma or whatever from the past or whatever's going on. I got COVID along with everybody else. It's just that way. I wasn't, why did I get COVID? Because I left my cocoon and went to a sporting event. Okay, so I only have myself to blame. Was it worth it? Perhaps. But in any case, it happened. So you see things the right way. It's your time. You have to trust me on that. It is your time. Don't be listening to that voice. Okay. Don't listen to that voice. Have faith in the Dharma, faith in the Buddha, faith in the Sangha, faith in yourself. You will do well. Okay. Sign up.
I trust you. I will.
Please sign up, because this is your time. There's a lot of work to do, and I'm not picking too many green bananas anymore when I go to the market. Okay, so I want to get as many of you young ones in before I can go, like Tori's still hanging around. No, some of these other ones, they have some useful life, but you guys are like the ones that can be around for a while. Okay. So
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, David, hold on. There you go. Go ahead.
Well, Gilbert, I guess listening to all this and everything, and about Watos and everything, seems rather daunting and everything. And I've been sitting here trying to think what kind of question I wanted to ask. And I would say, maybe to go back a little earlier, I'm still really searching for a particular method to use. And when does one know when to begin, that the time is right to use the Wato? And is it maybe too much of a method, too complicated? I don't know, maybe if you know me pretty well or something, I don't know, but maybe that's kind of beyond me to do at this time.
I think that you're better with counting the breath and then segueing into shikantaza and then silent illumination. Shikantaza is observing the body, and kind of observing the body kind of like a hologram. So you're just aware of the body in the environment, and then allowing that just to dissolve and due to silent illumination. I think the Huato is going to confuse you to no end, and it's just going to generate more internal discussion and judgments than it's worth. So with you, you're better with silent illumination. Like I said, counting the breath first, getting that stabilized, and then going into shikantaza, and then to silent illumination. That's your best bet. Okay.
That's
and
great.
that will
Thank
keep
you.
you calmer. The other one's going to agitate you too much, and you're all an old crotchety guy already, so we don't want to do that. So hopefully you don't take offense to what I said.
No.
Okay. It's just I'm looking at it and saying, okay, this is the method that you should use, and because it suits you better. I think it's going to keep you kind of like more mellow, rather than trying to decipher and dismantle what's going on with the Huatou. It's too much going on for you, too many sprockets and springs and things that are turning, whereas illumination just kind of brings you to a very quiet place. And so as I'm explaining that to him, I would give the same advice to other people, you know, that have that kind of a way of doing it. And so it just depends on what your personality is and age and stuff, you know, whether you should use a Huatou or not. So silent illumination will get you there too, David. You know,
Yeah.
all you have to do is just prepare the right view platform, and then you can take off from anywhere. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good enough. Okay, Wendy.
Thank you. I have same question as David. Would it throw me off the cliff? Huatou?
Yeah,
Would, okay. Don't do it. Okay, thank you.
yeah. Yeah, just go back to silent illumination. Huatou is very attractive in some ways, but it you have to kind of match with it. And if some personalities, they can become very annoyed or preoccupied with it or disturbed with it. I'm not saying either one of you have any kind of emotional or mental problems. Somebody who's very off, definitely that shouldn't be something that's recommended. But with you, the two of you, you would be more suited towards silent illumination. Okay. I think that will work better. Like I say, less springs and sprockets and gears turning around in silent illumination. So, you know, it will work just like Harry, you know, he's got a handle on that and it works fine with him. Okay, so do that. Okay. One last quick question, if there's anything, otherwise we'll terminate it. Okay, no questions, and we'll continue on with this. There's still some more that we can pull out of this particular master. I thank you all for asking the questions. I mean, the questions are good questions. And again, I use these kinds of things like from this Master Jeshan, this Discord on Chan training as a jumping point or a platform to talk about, and not to go over everything minutely with it, but just to simply kind of give you the spirit of Chan via this what this great master had written in his exhortations of you to practice. This is very, very important because it helps us become a good student and good practitioner. Remember, the Buddha's in the present moment. Keep your mind in the present moment, okay? And it will work well. I will see you next week. So thank you all for attending, and bring your questions. Amitofo. Thank you all.